Putin in trouble, Russian general missing. With the change of the age, many innovations came with it. In ancient times, the state used to fight each other in squares. Today, this style of the warfare has changed for the most part. After the world wars, the destructive effects and the cost of the war forced states to look for the other ways. The cost of the waging and sustaining big wars is really reaching huge numbers. People looked for solutions to these problems. Some said let's peace prevail, others said that the shape of the wars change. This is how the shape of the wars has changed. Today, states use certain troops to fight wars or in conflict zones. The states conduct proxy wars through these troops they use. Through this, they can suddenly be on any sides in the war in any region. Wagner, a company that Russia has outsourced its work to its various parts of the world, seems to have become a thorn in Russia's side. Wagner, which has been organizing Russia's strategic operations in the Middle East and Asia for many years, has revolted in recent months. This situation seriously damaged the prestige of Moscow administration. With the agreement made afterwards, Wagner troops were expelled. Wagner's troops, who were also assigned to operations in Ukraine, were at a loss as to what to do after their leaders rebelled. But the Russian government pretended to control turned out to be a big lie. Let's examine Putin's Wagner problem together. According to a new report, the Wagner group was ordered to leave Ukraine after the failed rebellion, but the mercenary group Wagner is still hurting Russia's war effort. It turns out that the resources allocated for the Wagner group are blocking the resources of other private military companies working for the Russian Defense Ministry. The Russian Defense Ministry thought that after the failed rebellion against Russia's military leaders, Wagner commanders would join Russia's official army, or a PMC, like the Redoubt group, and continuing fighting in the war in Ukraine. But things did not work out as calculated. According to local sources, the rumors about Wagner officials joining the Redoubt turned out to be a Russian Defense Ministry fake news reports. It turned out that no Wagner commanders were transferred to Redoubt and instead continued to perform tasks as a part of the Wagner leadership. Sources connected to the Wagner, as well as Prigozhin himself, have previously sharply criticized Redoubt and its constituent units, as well as Wagner's tensions with the Russian Defense Ministry during the Battle of Bakhmut. Wagner has emerged an important military factor for Russia in the past years after Moscow's official armed forces suffered setback on the battlefields of Ukraine. After rescuing success for Russia in late 2022, Wagner became the largest force available to the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Bakhmut, which saw months of furious fighting before Russia eventually took control of the city. Ukraine has since maintained its operations in Bakhmut during the ongoing counteroffensive. Kremlin critics describe Prigozhin's rebellion as a major blow to Putin's power. The Wagner leader has reportedly agreed to go into exile in Belarus after his third rebellion. But after Prigozhin was spotted in Russia last month during a summit with African leaders hosted by Putin, criticisms of the Kremlin leadership has grown. Reports suggest that the funds earmarked for Wagner Group undermine some of the Russian Defense Ministry's work related to the Putin's war in Ukraine. A previous report said that Russia had failed to take full control of some Russian troops supported by Russian officials and businessmen. There is a growing backlash on the Wagner-affiliated channels over the suggestion that Wagner commanders could be transferred to Redoubt. Russia, which does not want to experience the problems it experienced due to the Wagner again, is approaching Redoubt troops more cautiously. Wagner sources, on the other hand, continues to undermine some units associated with the Russian Defense Ministry. While Russia's problems with paramilitary companies are growing, there is also the problems of the new soldiers to be sent to the front. The number of the draft dodgers to avoid going to the war is increasing every day. For this reason, intensive work is being carried out in military service offices in Russia. As a result of these studies, draft dodgers are tired to be identified, but efficient studies cannot be carried out due to the corporation allegations. Although no statements was made by local sources from Moscow regarding corporation allegations in military offices, it was reported that investigations on the subject are ongoing. Sergei Sorokin, also known as the General Almageddon, the former commander of Russia's military operations in Ukraine, has not been seen for the last 3 months. There is no clear information about what happened to the general. It is believed that general who has not been seen since the Wagner Group's rebellion in June has been placed under house arrest. Surovikin was earned the nickname of Armageddon in Russian media for his aggressive military tactics in Chechnya and Syria, was last seen in a video calling for an end to the June 24 hours uprising led by Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin. Recently, U.S. intelligence reports revealed that the general was not good terms with Prigozhin and knew in advance of Prigozhin's plans to march on Moscow. General Sergei Surovikin is architect of the Russian defense lines in Ukraine and the first organization against the Ukrainian armed forces. He also played a major role in planning what is known as the Surovikin line. At a meeting of military officials in Moscow, questions were raised about general's whereabouts. A senior Russian politician said during the month that Surovikin was budged. But in the following days, sources close to the Russian security forces said that Surovikin was under the house arrest. Although there is no official investigations into General Surovikin, Surovikin and his relatives have been told to stay out of sight and out of mind. But questions about the situation remain. A few days after the immunity, Russian media reported that sources in the Russian Defense Ministry said Surovikin had been arrested for taking part with Prigozhin in the aborted immunity. According to the information obtained by military experts, Surovikin was accused of complicity in the uprising. A large-scale purge of the Russian military command is underway. While it is stated that the purges in the Russian military command are also continuing for senior commanders, it is reported that the Moscow administration is approaching everyone it's suspicious. Russian authorities did not confirm General Surovikin's arrest but refused to provide information on his whereabouts. This could be a consequence of the widespread disappearance in Russia. In Russia, it is known that people who disagree with Vladimir Putin or the Moscow administration are eliminated. It is thought that the Moscow administration's problems with the mercenary groups will not be solved in short time. Even though that they are trying to cover up the crisis, they continue to grow. While the Kremlin is experiencing anxious days, Ukraine continues its counterattacks without slowing down. How do you evaluate Russia's cooperation with mercenary groups? How do you think the rebellion of the Wagner Group can be interpreted? What are the consequences of the growing shortage of the troops in Russia and the loss of the morale of the troops at the front? How do you assess the situation of the General Surovikin? What do you think about the elimination of dissidents in Russia? We value your opinion. Please share it with us.